Hello everyone and welcome to a new video of turning a boring engine into a tuner dream engine starring the Nissan KA24DE engine. Of course, as we all know, this engine is not really a boring engine. It's one of the best engines ever produced by Nissan in the 90s, which is this one, the KA24DE. Now, this engine started in life back in 1988. Which was a single overhead camshaft, 3 valves per cylinder. I mean, compression ratio was acceptably normal. It was good, it wasn't really that bad, but with time Nissan evolved this engine and made it better and better, fitting it with, as you can see, double overhead camshaft and many other crazy upgrades into this engine, which made this engine very favorable by car tuners, or basically, you know, crazy car tuners, because I've seen some videos where people pushing these engines up to a, I don't know, 700 horsepower, 1000 horsepower, even with massive turbochargers on top of them, which, I mean, it's just crazy, which is really crazy. So in this video, my friends, we will be trying to do not that crazy, but we'll be trying to push this engine to its limits, hopefully. So as always, enjoy the video and let's have fun exploring this little beast here. So as you can see, it's obviously a 4-cylinder engine, which the version that I'm currently using here, it was made in 1998. This engine was used in the S14 240SX Nissan sports car. That's the version that I want to use, and I'm currently using an automation game. This engine is pushing 155 horsepower, 160 pound-feet of torque. So the numbers are not really that bad, but the tuners, I mean, those people are just legends, because when you search online for information about this engine, you will find tons and tons of information about how to upgrade it using cheap parts, or maybe OEM parts, or maybe if you want to go super crazy, you can tune it to like huge crazy numbers, and that's what we are going to do here. So let's start with the basic stock figures for this engine and stock, specs for it. Of course, it's an inline 4. The block, which is a cast iron block, which is really surprising. At first I thought it was made from aluminium, but no, it's from cast iron. The bore and stroke on this little beast are the bore is 89 millimeters on the bore and 96 millimeters on the stroke, which equals 2389 cc. Pretty nice number. It's not really a tiny engine. It's a, let's say, a medium size inline 4, which is really nice. Double overhead camshaft, that's what I want to use because this is the 1998 version. 4 valves per cylinder, and no, it's not cast iron, it's actually aluminium. I did search it and I forgot to change this. So it has cast iron block and aluminium cylinder head, which is really cool. No VVL. We have cast iron crankshaft, not forged, cast iron crankshaft, heavy duty forged connecting rods, and forged pistons. This is the combination that I found online. So zero quality here. Let's see, 9.5 to 1. This is the compression ratio on this particular version. Let's see, the cam profile that I used is 54 to get the exact horsepower and torque. No VVT, no VVL, none of that nonsense. +1 quality on the camshafts, naturally aspirated, of course. Multi-point EFI fuel system, single throttle body, and standard intake manifold running on 91 octane fuel. 13.60 is the air-fuel ratio, 62 on the ignition, and 6000 is the RPM limit. Some versions of this engine came with 6100, some of them even more than that, but this particular version is on 6000. The exhaust, short cast headers, 3-way catalytic converters, reverse flow first muffler, and straight through second muffler, you know, to make it as quiet as the stock engine from back then. +4 quality on the exhaust system, so I can make it again to produce the exact horsepower and torque numbers. So, and this, as I've mentioned before, this is the final result: 155 horsepower, 160 pound-feet of torque. Now, the power peak and the torque peak are a little bit different from the real engine, because as everyone knows, on automation game you can't really get the exact power and torque peak always. Sometimes, yes, you can get them and it will be a miracle, but on some engines like this one, it's nearly impossible to get the peak power and torque in automation game. So it's okay, they are not really that much different. So as you can see, the engine is pretty reliable. It's fairly heavy, as you can see. Of course, it has, you know, cast iron block, which is really heavy, but I mean the internals, most of them are forged aluminum cylinder head. I mean it balanced itself when it comes to weight. It's acceptably heavy. Smoothness acceptably normal. It's very responsive, which is really cool. It's acceptably noisy. The emissions are acceptably high for the period. I mean, it's really good. I am really impressed by this engine. So let's fire it up in its stock form and see how it will sound. Alright, so as you have heard, the engine sounds really nice, which is really cool, quiet, sporty, powerful. Now let's start exploring and tuning this beast here, because according to many websites online, if you want to tune this engine on the cheap, it's really possible. You don't have to. You really don't have to spend so much money to make extra horsepower out of it, because it's a brilliantly designed and engineered engine. So first of all, of course, if you want to tune your engine on the cheap, you never ever open the engine or mess with the internals. You just need to service it. Make sure your engine is pretty neat, powerful, and, you know, running as healthy as possible. Now, according to those websites, if you want to go and tune your engine on the cheap, the first thing you need to do is get a cold air intake kit, which they will give you the part number for it, and on those websites, which is really awesome. So let's say we went online and we have bought this cold air intake kit with of course as recommended on those websites. You need to get also a different intake manifold and a bigger throttle body. So let's say we did all of these things. The next step is to get a better exhaust system, starting with an aftermarket kit, which they will also provide for you on those websites. You know, the part number for this aftermarket exhaust kit, which is really helpful. So let's see, this aftermarket exhaust kit, tubular, that comes with the tubular headers. Let's see, a bigger diameter for the exhaust, high flow 3-way catalytic converters, and let's say a single straight through muffler. That's really cool. Or let's say 2.5-inch exhaust diameter. That's really cool. As you can see, look at the horsepower difference so far. What we only did is installed a performance or cold air intake, and you know, we have changed the exhaust with an aftermarket exhaust kit, which is really cool. And look at the results, and it should look and sound much better. So let's fire it up. Alright, now this engine sounds much better. Now, as according to those online websites, the next step is get a different ECU, and they will also provide you with the part number and which type of ECU you need to use. So let's say we went with an aftermarket ECU, and they also mentioned you need to increase the RPM limit, because this engine can go all the way up to 6,800, but as we can see here, the internals cannot go to 6,800. They will start to destroy themselves. So what we need to do is increase the quality for those internals. Alright, job done. 6,800 as they have mentioned. And of course, with a different ECU, you need to tweak, of course, the ignition and the airflow ratio. So as you can see, the ignition is somehow perfect on 62. Let's say 63 or 64. This way the horsepower will peak all the way to the max. People will hate that, so let's go back to 63. Let's say injecting more fuel in, you know, just for the sake of it. Some ECUs or some tuners will do that on the dyno. Yes, job done. So far, this is the ECU installed. Look at that, 182 horsepower. Remember, ECU, exhaust kit, and a cold air intake with different intake manifold and throttle body. So let's fire this beast. the engine is not getting exactly 100% of the air that it can get from the atmosphere. So what we need to do, and this is actually recommended on those forums, which of course go with a throttle per cylinder configuration. As you can see, I mean, the horsepower, it's not gonna jump all the way through the roof, but it will be an amazing thing to do. So as you can see, throttle per cylinder, and yes, there are tons of kits if you want to get the throttle per cylinder setup online, and this is how it looks. Let me show you. Yes, it looks absolutely crazy. So now we have 4 individual throttles, big fat intake manifold, as you can see, and of course bigger pipe for the air filter and the airbox, which is really awesome. This should give the engine all of its air that is needed to make it even more powerful. That's really cool. Now let's see, we did the exhaust, ECU, throttle per cylinder setup. Let's fire it up now before we go into the bigger things. Beautiful indeed. Now also, according to those forums, you can get some sort of camshafts, OEM, I'm not kidding, OEM camshafts from Nissan. You can get those, and they will give you the part number for those camshafts, and they will increase your horsepower and torque all the way to 200 horsepower from the factory. These are camshafts from the factory. I'm not really sure if they are like from Nismo or from a different engine type, or maybe from a racing Nissan or something. I'm not really sure, but they will give you those part numbers, so you can go to Nissan warehouse, part store warehouse, or whatever they call it, and you can order those camshafts. So let's assume that we have those camshafts. Let's assume they are like in this sport category, which is like 65, yeah, 65, and those camshafts will be like higher quality camshafts, or maybe let's go with maybe 70, 72, yeah. So 73, for example. As you can see, we are in the high performance area. It's a sport yellow, but we are above the middle, so it's in the high performance area. So look at that, 201 horsepower. So these forums are not lying into us. As you can see, we have 200 horsepower from the same engine, the same internals. What we did was we changed everything else on top of this engine. We have changed so far the camshaft with an OEM high performance camshaft, the aftermarket exhaust kit, aftermarket individual throttle body kit, and of course aftermarket ECU. Now these things have pushed this engine from 155 horsepower up to 201 horsepower, and the torque used to be 160 pound-feet of torque on 4000 RPM. Now it's 167 at 5700 RPM. That's a massive increase, massive increase. So let's fire it up. So, oh, listen to the camshafts burping the engine. Awesome. Very amazing. Now remember, we are still tuning this engine in 1998, so this is not really 100% correct. Let's go to 2019. This way we are 100% correct. Now we are running realistic if you are tuning this engine in 2019. Alright, so now we are happy with the power. Your S14 240SX is now having extra 50 horsepower, drifting, tail happy, amazingly driving like an awesome car, but you still want more horsepower. Your friends are still laughing at you for running 200 horsepower car. So the next step, according to those websites, is if you want to keep yourself in the naturally aspirated area, you can make tons of more horsepower using naturally aspirated engine. You need to change the exhaust manifold. You need to change it with a custom made exhaust manifold. They will give you the exact diameters, or the shape of it, which you can find on Amazon or eBay. You can purchase those, and with of course the aftermarket exhaust kit, and you will have tons of more horsepower. Let's check this claim. So let's say you went with a long, ooh, look at the difference. from 202 to 216. What a massive increase. And let's say you went like to the world with, of course, a custom racing exhaust headers or exhaust manifold. 220 horsepower with a custom, as you can see, custom welded racing header or a custom exhaust manifold. As you can see, looks pretty sick on this engine. And let's see if we can actually run a straight through exhaust. Ooh, look at that, running a straight through exhaust system. 2.2 inch exhaust diameter, a little bit smaller, but 222 horsepower. Oh my god, listen to that. My god, this engine is just a screamer. That's really awesome. I'm really impressed. So the next step, of course, if you want to keep your engine naturally aspirated, you can get like even a more aggressive camshafts. You can open the engine, put like higher compression ratio pistons, and change the the cylinder head, hone it, put bigger valves. All these things will add tons and tons of horsepower. You can maybe get it to 250 horsepower naturally aspirated, maybe more, who knows. But I mean, spending all that money, well, it's really cool. The engine will be absolutely amazing. It will have the most amazing throttle response because there is no lag or anything. But most people will tell you, go with a turbocharger. It's more cheaper. It's it's cheaper than opening the engine and change absolutely everything inside it to make it run on naturally aspirated with a higher horsepower numbers. But go with the turbo. Turbo will serve you much better, and it will cost you, very less than that. So let's say turbocharger, ball bearing, let's say, and according to the forums, you can get the S15 Silvia, the SR20DET turbo. You can get that turbo, OEM. You can order it from the Nissan dealership or part warehouse, whatever you want to call it. You can order it and you can install it using a custom manifold and custom piping and an intercooler and all these nonsense, and you can get very high amount of horsepower. So let's assume, let's use 95 octane fuel, and look at that, 284 horsepower. That is really cool, as you can see. And since the internals can now, because we have increased the, the production year to 2019, that made the internals to jump to 7,300 max. So I'm not gonna increase the RPM, because as you have remembered, the internals can only get to 6,800 without exploding. This is not correct, because we have increased the production year. That's not correct. But yes, 284 horsepower. Let's see, bigger exhaust. As you can see, the engine is knocking. We need more fuel in. I want 300 horsepower. As you can see, bigger exhaust diameter and 300 horsepower. That is absolutely sick. I love it. 300 horsepower. Very awesome. Very awesome indeed. Wow, that's really cool. Now, you are happy with 300 horsepower and you have saved some money, and your engine is starting to wear out because, well, it's from 1998. So you decided to open the engine. You want to keep it turbocharged, but you want to open it, put better internals in it. So let's change the crankshaft to a forged steel crankshaft, lightweight forged connecting rods, and lightweight forged pistons. This way you can rev it even higher, which is the whole purpose of that. And let's say, since you have opened the engine, we can increase the compression ratio, but you'll have some knocking issues. So let's say 9.8 to 1. This way you need more fuel, as you can see, which will run at, let's say, 12.6. That's a little bit rich, but it's not bad. Now is the moment of increasing the RPM. Let's see, 7,800. All right, here we go, 312 horsepower. And now you have much more RPM to rev your engine, which is really good. Let's fire it up and hear the new RPM range. Very awesome indeed. Now for our fans from Europe, most of them will tell you we have 98 octane fuel on most of our fuel or petrol station or whatever they call them. So yes, for those fans, let's say you want to use 98 octane fuel, because in the Middle East, most of the countries have only 95 octane fuel. So let's say your country has 98 octane fuel in its petrol stations. This way you will get extra headroom to tune your engine. This way you can push the boost even higher, like let's say 12 psi. Let's say 12 psi, that will be really nice. Let's say you have pushed your boost up to 12 psi boost. Let's say you want to put a bigger intercooler, a fatter intercooler up front. Let's say you want to push more fuel into the engine. Let's say you want to go super crazy, 12.0 to 0.0 on the air fuel ratio. Add more ignition in. All these things will make your engine running much more awesome. And of course you need a dyno to tune all these things. Look at that, 351 horsepower. That is sick. Wow. And remember, we are still running those OEM high performance camshafts. So if you want also to go super crazy, you can change also the camshaft with even more aggressive ones, like custom or maybe aftermarket, camshafts with bigger valves, and you can open the ports on your cylinder head, like high quality camshafts. All these things will make your engine running extremely high, and you will be spending every single penny you have in your bank account on this engine. If you want to do all these things, yes, you will be spending every single dime you have. Look at that, 375 horsepower, different exhaust, different ECU tune, different the turbo is still the same, but we are pushing more boost in with a fatter intercooler. We have changed the cam profile. All these things made this thing even more powerful. 375 horsepower. Wow. Remember, my friends, we have started with 155 horsepower only and 160 pound-feet of torque. Look at that. Now we have 277 pound-feet of torque, extra 117 pound-feet of torque extra. That is really sick. Also the horsepower, we used to be 155. We have, let's say, 224 horsepower extra, using of course custom engine internals, custom camshaft or aftermarket camshaft, and of course the turbocharger. As you can see, look at that small turbine size and massive compressor size. Look at that. If I want to go and make it use a fatter turbocharger, I can do that, but we need to push more fuel in. 11.6. Look at that, 400 horsepower. You will be running against muscle cars with this kind of setup. That is really awesome. As you can see, more boost in. Let's call it the boost caboose. 13 psi of boost, fatter intercooler, 425 horsepower. That is really sick. Add more ignition in to make it more responsive. Absolutely crazy. No need for a fatter exhaust. That is absolutely crazy, and we are still running EFI, not DFI. That is really sick. 425 horsepower, 311 pound-feet of torque. As you can see, different turbocharger, different tune. Let's see. hops and bangs. Absolutely amazing. Very awesome. The last step, if you want to go extremely crazy, like a fully on racing engine, you can go with billet steel crankshaft, titanium connecting rods, like let's say +5 quality, and then you can go, let's say 100 on the camshaft. No, not 100. Let's say 93. That's really cool. And the turbo, well, if you want to go bigger, you can go with a bigger turbo, but I mean that's the limit. It will not make any extra horsepower with a bigger turbo. Compressor, same idea. Intercooler, yes, you can go with a fatter intercooler. Let's go with less ignition, and let's say a bigger intercooler. That's very good. Bigger compressor. All these things are making this engine even powerful. Since you have better internals, you can rev the engine even higher. Let's say +6 quality, +7, here we go. 8,400 RPM. That is really awesome. 475 horsepower. I mean, if I can get this engine to 500 horsepower, that would be absolutely amazing. If you want to spend more money, you can get horsepower. If you don't want to spend money, that's your limit. So 512 horsepower. That is sick. Can you imagine an S14 with 512 horsepower engine? It will burn those rear tires like a beast. 18, that's really good. 520, 521. Here we go, 15.2 PSI. That is absolutely sick. 521 horsepower. The last step that you can do is, of course, go fully on racing. 540 horsepower from only a 2.4 liter engine. Of course, in real life they are pushing those engines even higher than this, but in an automation game that is a quite achievement. Can you imagine how this thing will be in a car in BeamNG.Drive? I really cannot wait to add this and to put this engine in a car and test it in BeamNG.Drive. Let's do a last step before we, before we give up on this engine. Let's go plus 15 quality on everything. Just for the fun, just for fun, nothing else. And let's see, plus 15 quality, just for the fun. I know it's not realistic. I know it's extremely expensive and not realistic at all. But I just want to see. I just want to see how hard we can push this bad boy. So 604 horsepower. Oh my god, 604 horsepower and 381 pound-feet of torque. That is really amazing. Wow, 604 horsepower. That is more than any engine you can see on the road. But of course, this is now a racing engine. It's not really a street engine anymore. So let's fire it up. Wow, absolutely amazing. So that's pretty much it, my friend. Tell me, what do you think about this engine in the comment section below. Do you think this engine deserves to spend that much money on it? As you can see right now, I mean, forget those two things. Those two things are not really realistic. But look at that, the material cost. Do you think this engine deserves to spend that much money on it or not? I mean, to be honest with you, I'm happy with this engine with only like 200 horsepower, 250 horsepower with a turbo on it. But of course, 605 horsepower. This is, I mean, this is spending every last penny you have on it, and I mean, it will not be really that much reliable. As you can see, 59.9, and this is plus 15 quality on everything. And thank you so much, guys, for watching. Thank you so much for the amazing fan, the amazing viewer that requested this engine. I really had so much fun exploring this engine on the forums and doing it in, of course, in automation game. Of course, don't forget to hit that thumbs up. Hit it really hard, get subscribed, share the video if you want to share it. Check out my Patreon page, the link in the description below, if you want to download special crazy cars, and if you want to download the special crazy car that I'm gonna be putting this engine in, because right now, after I finish from recording this video, I'm gonna put this engine in a special car and then go crazy with it in BeamNG.drive. If you want to get that special car, the link in the description below for my Patreon page. Sign up to our Patreon page and you can download all of my crazy special cars, like the V16 Queen, like the Toyota AE86, and that special car that I'm going to be making right now. And of course, by signing up to our Patreon page, you can get special behind the scenes, you can get 4K wallpapers, you can watch special videos that, of course, no one can watch except you, the subscriber on my Patreon. And by doing that, you will be supporting this channel and giving me more motivation to do much more videos and challenges. Thank you so much, guys, for watching. I will see you very, very soon with more videos, and goodbye for now, my friends.